Hi everyone, it's Lou Collins for CraftStash, and today I want to focus on 3D embossing folders. We have a fantastic new range of three-dimensional embossing folders at CraftStash. They've just been launched and they're absolutely beautiful. But I want to show you a technique that I love to do, particularly with my floral ones. So this is going to be something a little bit different to just getting that three-dimensional look. We're adding lots of colour to it as well. So let's get straight in with the technique. You can find these embossing folders available linked down below. We'll link them at the end for you as well. Available at CraftStash exclusively, so make sure you check those out. Now, as I go through the technique, I'm also going to give you lots of tips and tricks for using 3D embossing folders and just embossing folders in general. You'll also find other videos on our channel too, and we'll try and link those at the end for you also, so you can go and watch those. So a 3D embossing folder is always slightly thicker, slightly deeper than your average embossing folder. So the plate combination that you would usually use with your embossing folders will probably need to be reworked a little bit. So for average embossing folders that are not 3D, I would usually, in my Big Shot, take out the thinnest plastic plate and put my folder in between the two clear ones, the two clear top ones, and that would be the right sandwich. I then am able to also add in a rubber mat if I want a little bit of extra pressure and extra dimension. Now, because this is slightly thicker, we're going to keep this mat in for now, and we're going to remove one of our clear plates instead, because these are slightly bigger. It allows room for the 3D folder. Now, every machine is different, all plates are different, cardstock thicknesses are different, so do make sure you have a play with your particular machine and work out the best one for you. Now, I've got a piece of 5x7 cardstock that I'm going to place in my folder. I always cut this down to size, leaving a slight border, so make sure it comes right to the edge of the folder, because what I'll do then is, once I've completed my project, I will trim the design. As you can see, the design doesn't come all the way to the edge of the folders, so you'll be trimming this piece off anyway. But before we run this through, I'm going to take some water and just give my cardstock a very light mist of water. With 3D folders, I try to go for quite a heavyweight cardstock, so at least 250 GSM. This is because there's a lot of bending and stretching of the card fibres. If you use anything much thinner than that, it's just going to crack and tear. So I've done a light mist both front and back of the paper or cardstock, and that's just going to increase the flexibility of that paper, so we get more of a bend and less likely to have any sort of cracking or tearing. So I'm going to put this into my machine and run it through just like so, with no rubber mat at the moment, because the 3D folders are so beautiful on their own, they don't need the additional rubber mat in there. And you'll get this beautiful dimensional image, and rather than just one raised level as such, you're going to get lots of levels raised here. So for this technique, what I'm going to do now is take out my So for this technique, I'm going to take out my cardstock, put my folder to the side. I've actually flipped it over, so I've got the flowers, the beautiful, these sunflowers. They could be daisies, they could be lots of different flowers depending on how you colour them. But I've got them raised at the moment, but I'm actually going to turn this over for this technique and use the other side. So this time I'm actually using the reverse, and I'm going to place this back into my folder just like so while I work with it. Now, the reason I'm putting this in my folder is because I'm going to be pressing down, I'm going to be adding colour and ink to it, and I don't want to depress any of those areas that are now raised up. So I'm going to be using some Distress Oxides here, different colours, and I'm also going to be using my Creative Craft Products stencil brushes. These are perfect for getting in the detail. I'm just going to let's start on this flower, and I'm going to add some colour into the deep grooves of the three-dimensional image there, and I am going to be going kind of over the edges a little bit. I'm not going to be too particular about staying in one place. I quite like the blended look of having colours seeping into each other. And now I've done all my flower centres with the brown, I'm going to go to an orange, and I'm going to go round the central parts of each of the petal. Now, as you're doing this, you'll notice that the raised areas seem to pick up more of the ink, and that's normal. That's absolutely fine. Don't worry about that too much because we are going to cover that over. What we're looking for is colour going on the lower parts of the design instead. So just make sure your colour is reaching those areas. And lastly, I want to do the tips, the ends of all my petals with a nice bright yellow. These are going to be sunflowers, but as I said at the beginning, because of the shape of them, they could be absolutely any flower you'd like them to be. They could be blues, purples, pinks. You could mix up the colours as well. You don't have to do the entire panel with the same colour flowers. Have some fun and enjoy the process of adding the colour. There, I think I've coloured in all of my sunflowers, so now I'm going to make this really stand out. Again, make sure that is sat perfectly inside the debossed areas of the folder still. I'm going to take a black ink pad, so this could be any black ink pad, it doesn't have to be black either. You could go ahead and you could use other colours instead, but I like something that really contrasts. And I'm going to again hold my paper in place and just brush this over the surface of the design there, and as you can see, that is only catching those raised areas. So I'm making sure I'm keeping my pad flat at all times, and this is creating a really fun background to my bright flowers, picking out any detail. How beautiful is that? So I'm just going to make sure I'm going over. I don't want to press too hard, but I know because of the 3-dimension of these really good quality embossing folders, I'm not going to get any black on the flowers. How stunning is that? So all that's left to do is trim the edges and put that onto a card. Now I'm choosing to create my own black card base here because I think that will echo the black background really nicely. So I've just folded a piece of A4 cardstock in half. I'm gluing the panel on and then I'm going to trim this down to size. So just a simple sentiment on there in bright white to stand out against the coloured background, keeping that as the focal point. I hope you've enjoyed this technique. Don't forget, you can check out all the CraftStash or Creative Craft products, 3D embossing folders that are brand new to the range at CraftStash. We'll link them up here for you and down in the description below too. You can also subscribe to our CraftStash channel here on YouTube to keep up to date with all the tips, tricks and videos just here, and we think you'll also really like this video just here. Thank you everybody, take care, see you soon.